listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode 133, where we talk about what the current climate of the firearm supply is, what's easy to get, what's not so easy to get, and what you should maybe be thinking about getting before the year is up. Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy episode 133 of Range Minded, the things to buy before the end of the year. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined as always by...
Hey, howdy, hey, it's Steve Zimmerman.
And Nick Hoffer.
How's it going, guys?
Oh, good. So good.
Good. Sounds like there's some wind going on somewhere.
Are you breathing into your mic, Nick?
Well, it's so close to my face because... Nice. Okay, I'll hold my breath the whole time.
There you go. That's all we ask. Thank you.
Like a petulant 5-year-old.
Actually, it's probably because I have on my Trump 2020 mask because I don't want to give you guys COVID through the internet.
I appreciate that.
Thank you for your consideration.
Just trying to be safe.
So we're coming to you after the election. It's not going to be a political podcast episode, but we were talking earlier today. Some things may be harder to find, or you may want to stock up on some things now or before the end of the year.
Yeah, there might be a couple things. Well, I'm sure as we get talking, we're going to find some items that are getting harder and harder to procure.
Yeah. So with that said, I would not say rush out and buy everything you can find, but you might start keeping your eyes open and paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, I think that is important. We don't want panic buying like the whole toilet paper thing in the beginning of the year. that was a little ridiculous. We do need to save stuff for everyone else. We don't need to be selfish. It's okay.
So speaking of toilet paper, Steve, I was in Lowe's yesterday, and they have pallets of toilet paper sold individual rolls right now in the main aisle. So if we're looking for that.
They're selling individual rolls of toilet paper
at Lowe's.
Why?
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, "What? Who comes here to get a single roll of toilet paper?"
Well, also, what do they know that we don't? Maybe.
Well, that's why I'm just spreading the word. Like, we could be getting ready for another lockdown in the beginning of the year next year, so we might want to get, I wonder, 1,000 or 2,000 rolls of toilet paper.
Yeah, let's just buy it by the pallet, just in case, I guess.
Well, that's how
maybe you have to buy a roll to use their restroom.
Could be. That's probably how we're going to be buying ammo, though, is by the round. I think if we're not, if we don't restrain the panic buying, I think that's going to be happening very soon. Yeah,
very soon.
So before we came on, I was kind of talking to Steve, and I had said, it's a weird time because we've gone through some panic buying in the past, and we're going through panic buying right now. But the parts and ammo have never been more readily available than they were this year, and we're already behind, and we haven't gone into the real panic yet.
Yeah. True story. Yeah, I went into the local gun store, one of the local gun stores here, the other day. I can't remember what day it was. Friday? I think it was Friday night. And I was just going to buy gun parts, and just by saying that, you guys probably can imagine where the story's going. But I just wanted to find, honestly, some AR components. I'm planning on maybe building another 1 or 2 or 3 more boat anchors. So I went over there, and actually they had a really good deal on AR lowers. I know they're Andersons. They're nothing really super fancy, but guess what? They're mil spec. All the holes are the same. And they still work. And so I picked up 2 of those, and looking around, I was looking for uppers. I was looking for muzzle devices. I was looking for Glock parts because I have some projects in mind that I wouldn't mind working on in the next year. As I'm browsing around, I make it to the new gun counter, and I realized that you could actually buy gun parts completely assembled into one unit, and it's kind of an easier way to go because you don't have to put the thing together.
So you mean like a full gun?
Yeah, kind of, but it was just in parts, but they were all put together.
Yeah, it's a novel concept. When I was younger, we used to buy these things. They were called complete firearms, and for some reason, people they've regressed and think that you're supposed to build them yourself.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah. Well, I've also found that they're warranted better if they're pre-assembled.
Just a little bit, not a ton.
I may have picked up another Glock.
Really?
It's funny. I think that 80% AR lowers were a thing for a long time, but I blame Polymer 80 for their 80% Glock frames for ruining the completed firearm market.
Yeah, because it's so dang easy.
Sure.
Well, I guess it's not easy. I mean, there's still some skill that takes place, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and you can get more customized without having to waste a lot of parts if you didn't want them in there in the first place. So
yeah, you kind of get the finished product that you wanted from the start instead of kind of working backwards. But
right.
I still buy Glock pistols. I don't even own a Polymer 80. I probably should get one. That's probably one of the things that should be on my list to get before the end of the year, is at least one of those kits.
Yeah, that was at the top of my list, actually.
And let's talk about that for a minute, because I know we've talked about 80%ers before, but let's dive into them just a little bit again.
Yeah.
So for those who may not know, what is an 80% lower?
Well, it's a lower receiver for an AR usually that's not 100% completed. So therefore, it's not an actual firearm because, as we've talked about before, the only actual registered part of the firearm with a serial number and everything as far as an AR-15 is concerned is that lower receiver. So if it's not a completed lower receiver, then it doesn't need to have a serial number. It doesn't need to be registered or go through any books or anything.
Right. So the ATF decided to say, like, okay, if it's 80% finished, then it doesn't need to be serialized. So in that, as far as the AR is concerned, in the 80% lower, you don't have the trigger pins drilled out. You do not have the place where your trigger ejects or extrudes out of or into the trigger guard. You have to mill that out yourself. In some cases, you actually have to mill out the entire inside where all your trigger and firing components go.
I was going to say, isn't that usually the case where that trigger housing and all that where the internals are not?
I guess it is, yeah, because I remember seeing one come into the shop and we laughed at the guy because he milled through the side of his receiver.
That's not how you do that.
No, it's expensive.
Got a little carried away with the router, dude.
Yeah, he must have had it just in his vise or something, and he was using his drill, a hand drill. I don't know. It was something ridiculous. It just didn't work out very well.
Yeah, because you can do it with certain, at least a drill press. You actually need some tools to do it. You can't just
wing it?
Yeah, you can't just get a battery-powered drill and hope for the best.
Dang it. I'm pretty good with cordless.
Well, maybe you could do it, but I don't know about anybody else. I sure couldn't.
No,
so anyways,
okay, go ahead.
So, we're talking about 80% AR lowers. So, where are we going with this?
I don't know. Well, we were just talking about people, so people knew what they are if they didn't. If any of our listeners didn't know.
Well, the whole thing is that if you wanted to get one, you don't have to go through a Form 4473 to get an 80% lower receiver.
So we have 80% lower receivers for ARs, the AR-15, and then we have 80% pistol frames, primarily Glock frames. Well, actually, I think they're all Glock clone frames, right? But there's some different shaped ones.
I could be wrong.
So if we had to say, I would say that definitely 80% frames and lowers are something that I would put on my list, which are already hard to find right now.
I think people got on board with those a few months ago, and maybe saw that there was going to be a limited amount at some point.
So I think that I'm having a little bit of seller's remorse on getting rid of that CNC mill because I probably could have gotten into making 80% AR lowers.
Yeah, that's true. As far as getting one, it may be a little bit difficult, but I don't think that they're going to go away necessarily any time in the next month or two. So if you keep your eyes out for them, you should be able to find one.
Yeah, I think AR lowers are going to be easier to find than the pistol frames, because the pistol frames are already hard to find, and there's only so many people. I think there's only like 3 or 4 companies that make the pistol frames. The AR lowers, hundreds of companies are making those, so you should be able to find them. But yeah, that's what I would have on my top of my list. Yeah,
and I would have AR receivers actually above pistol frames, because I think if anything's going to be harder to get or become illegal, it's going to be that first. So I agree. Pistols are going to be a little bit more readily available for longer. So if you haven't gotten into the AR game and you can't find a fully finished AR receiver, then maybe going the 80% route would be your best bet, because there are people who can help you get it figured out and drill it out, and there are jigs that you can buy as well, which are kind of handy, that show you where you need to drill and all that kind of stuff as well. So
in fact, I think, and maybe it's not available anymore, there was a small CNC machine that you could purchase. Its only program was AR lowers, 80% lowers, the only program, and it was a small desktop unit. Like it was small.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of that, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a thing.
I don't even know if it's available anymore. They're gone too.
Well, I know that they were trying to outlaw that machine in California, because that was a big deal. It was by the same guy who created the 3D printer programs for the gun parts.
Oh, Defense Distributed, I think.
Yeah, and he basically, I remember the backstory behind it, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but the backstory was he created that kind of like a middle finger to the lawmakers when they were trying to shut down his other company.
Yeah, but that just goes to show that if people want to be able to defend themselves, they're going to figure out a way to do it one way or the other.
And I would say the firearms industry, we are the kings of finding the workaround. So
yeah,
it's very called ingenuity.
Yeah,
that's what this country was built on.
So yeah, it might be a little bit tough to find, but there are a lot of places online you can look, and even your local gun shop should have at least a couple AR receivers that are around, or if you shop around, you can find them locally. As long as they're legal in your state, that is.
Yeah, there's still some things you got to deal with as far as state laws. So that's up to you to do your homework on that. We're not in any way, shape, or able to give legal advice.
Yeah, there's the COA on that one. Make sure you're following all the state and local laws that pertain to your local area.
So next on my list is going to be ammo. What do you guys got?
That was next on my list as well, actually. But it seems like receivers and full firearms and everything else are a lot easier to find than ammunition.
So I definitely would say keep your eyes open for ammunition. I was at that gun show last weekend in Salt Lake, and there was plenty of ammo to be found. Obviously, the atmosphere has changed a little bit in the last week, but I would start paying attention to that. Maybe picking up some reloading components as you see them, if that's something that you are into and that you can do. I know in the last panic buy, I bought a bunch of reloading stuff and never used it. So,
yeah, I think it's advisable too to say when we talk about whether it be ammo or reloading supplies, just be prepared to pay a lot more than you think you need to. Whether that's because of quantity or just cost. I was online the other day. I got a little teaser on an email saying, "Hey, we have 9mm in stock." So I jumped on their website. I'd never even heard of this manufacturer.
Oh no!
And they had a whole bunch of it. But it was $25 a box, I think. So it sucks, but it is what it is. We should have maybe planned ahead and bought plenty of ammo before now.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you haven't had a kind of a backup or a stockpile by this point, it's definitely a good idea to have one when it becomes more readily available, because I think the ammo shortage will eventually regulate. It'll go back to the way it was. I mean, how many ammo shortages have we been through since 2010, maybe 11? There have been 3 or 4. And
yeah, but I think, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like everyone has been a little bit more severe than the one before it. So
sorry, Steve. So my question is going to be this: we've gone through ammo shortages several times in say the last 12 years, right? So
sure.
We're not. A lot of people who are stockpiling ammo, would it be safe to say that they already have ammo stockpiled and are adding to a stockpile?
I think there's a few people that are doing that exact thing. Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
So at what point is your stockpile adequate, and you take that money, and instead of investing in bullets, you're getting some of the other things down the list? Because I would think that if I had 10,000 rounds of various ammo, if I'm not shooting at the range, which a lot of us are probably not doing as much target practice as we were before, that's going to get me through for a couple of years. Maybe.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
And if it does come down to the apocalypse, end of the world, I can't travel very well or do much hauling around a trailer with 2 tons of ammunition on it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago about what we would be comfortable with as an amount of ammo with that you wouldn't have to go get any more.
Well, I think it's okay to buy ammo as long as I think what you're saying, Nick, is that you're just cycling through your warehouse, if so to speak, right? Like you're not letting stuff go stale. You might be buying more, but you're training more with what you already have and keeping stuff fresh.
I think that's a good way to look at it. But more of what I'm getting at is, like, if you're taking all of that, you only have so much money to spend on this stuff. You still have to live, pay your bills, and do other things. So when you're prioritizing ammo over, say, freeze-dried food, or ammo over extra magazines, or ammo over body armor or different gear, like where do you draw your personal line and say, yeah, that's 29mm ammo. Now I'm going to take that money and I'm going to buy some plates for my plate carrier if that's what I want, or I'm going to go invest in some Mountain House freeze-dried food just to make sure that I can make it through another lockdown. Maybe not even the end of the world, but I have food in case the grocery stores are shut down again. Like, I think people get too caught up on, I need 10 million rounds. And really for me, like, I have 5,000 rounds of 9mm. I have 5,000 rounds of 223, and then I have some various hunting rounds. And that's just, I don't need to buy more unless I find a deal or I'm going to go shooting.
Right.
So that's kind of where I was headed with that. I don't know. Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think, well, I guess it's pretty easy to get down the whole mentality of a prepper. Like, oh man, you got to stockpile here, and here, and have all these caches of ammo distributed from here to Nebraska or whatever. But I don't think that's feasible. Like, I don't know, maybe some people, I don't worry about that as much as some people might. I guess that's the best way to put it. Honestly, I think it's best to fortify your own house, so to speak. Like, I don't plan on bugging out and going up in the mountains. I don't have a place to go to, so I need to fortify where I'm at. But in that fortification, I wouldn't sacrifice food storage for ammo storage either. Right. So I'm, like you're saying, I'm not gonna just go crazy with all this ammo and my kids are sleeping on pallets of ammunition instead of mattresses and stuff. That's stupid.
Yeah, you can't exactly eat bullets.
There are so many other people, especially, versus say, oh yeah, we want to make sure our neighbors are like-minded and that we can have whatever with our neighbors. Well, guess what? Your neighbors need ammo too. And and let them buy some. It's okay.
Yeah, I think some of us get too deep down the ammo rabbit hole, or even if it's guns, like even if it's like Steve's AR parts buying addiction. Like how many like realistically, if you're being realistic, how many ARs do you need other than just buying them because you're afraid you won't be able to get them? And that's fine too. I said when we went into this.
Yeah, my buying with guns isn't because my fear of not having them. It's just I just like them. I used to I collect sports cards too. You know, I've got 50,000 not playing cards, but sports cards and memorabilia. But I stopped doing that. You know, after a while. Now my addiction just got more expensive.
Somebody might have an addiction problem.
Yeah, I might be a little bit of a hoarder. I don't know. But I have no idea where I was going with that whole conversation other than I just like buying guns. I'm not so much scared that they're going away. I mean, I still hold to my comment from 2 years ago when I said that the Second Amendment's going to change and we're not going to have it the way we understood it then. And I think it has a little bit. I don't know. I guess I'm a Debbie Downer.
Well, I think the crux of the question is that at what point do you say, okay, I have enough for me and my family and my homestead, and I'm okay letting other people get what they need. I think that's kind of what Nick was getting at a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and I'm actually kind of to that point right now with my AR selection. I'm actually thinking about getting rid of a couple just to simplify a bit. I think I'm kind of at the point now where it's better to, and we talked about this a long time ago too, about maybe just having a few 9mm and some 5.56, just kind of keeping everything simple. So not to complicate any issues, instead of having a 45, a 9, a 10mm, a 5.7. Of course, I have all those things right.
All right, so we got 80%.
I'm going to start simplifying, I think.
Yeah, so to keep us going, we got 80% lowers and ammo is the top two on our list of things to watch for.
And for me, then the one after that is magazines.
Magazines, that's a good one too. That's on my list. It's the fourth one down. So
you could have all the ammo in the world, but if you can't reload quickly in a situation, if you need more than one magazine, you might be having some issues.
Yes, I agree. That was actually one of the other things I was planning on picking up while I was at the gun store, and I didn't end up buying any because I spent way too much money. But I think right now magazines are at the point where you can pick up a lot and they're still at normal price.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen a huge hike on the prices on magazines yet.
No, not yet.
So I think that if you're in the market for magazines, now is probably the time to buy them, because
perfect time. Yes.
Yeah, the beginning of next year is going to be crazy for magazines, because we know that Democratic administration is going to come after large capacity magazines in their terms. And I know that all this year, from speaking to the guys at Amend 2, they've been selling magazines as fast as they can make them. And there's not a shortage or a ban threat yet. So I would say February it's too late if you don't already have some on order.
Yeah, that would be the one thing I would probably encourage people to jump on as soon as possible. Not to create a panic buying situation, but it just might be prudent to get a few extra magazines.
Yeah, I would say so, especially because they are still relatively affordable. And if you have Glock magazines or AR mags, you can usually get them pretty cheap, and they're pretty high quality as well. Like you said, Nick, from Amend 2 or from, Magpul, obviously. Because like you said, if there's going to be maybe an assault weapons ban doesn't pass or something like that, something's going to be attempted, and that could be a magazine restriction or capacity or whatever. So there's a possibility for something to happen, and you want to make sure that you've got what you need to defend yourself.
Yeah, I think there is some kind of a restriction or ban something will come down the pipeline. Of course, I mean we could war game whatever all night long, but I just think it's a good idea to pick up some extra magazines for what guns you have.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because, like I said, if you have 1,000 rounds and you only have one magazine, you're not going to be in a great situation.
And honestly, even if it wasn't like if there wasn't any kind of a gun scare going on, I think for handguns you should have 5 or 6 magazines per handgun. I don't think that's outrageous personally. AR mags, you should have 10, 15 AR mags at least, in my opinion. That might sound crazy and overboard, but I think that's pretty reasonable.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I think that's about, personally, that's what I carry on hand. Not on hand, but that's my mags.
He walks around with he's got this chest rig just full of magazines.
Very heavy.
No, man. Inside the waistband magazine carriers all around my left side to my gun.
Carrying 400 rounds with them at all times.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. You better have a good gun belt.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I got my just in case leather gun belt on all the time.
Nice.
But yeah, if you have to, have money to spend right now and you want to get something, I think magazines would definitely be the way to go. But Steve, you were going to say something?
I was just saying that's a shameless plug that we put in right there for Justin.
What you said? So Nick, you said number 4. That was magazines were number 4 on your list. What was number 3? Did we skip over number 3?
Well, I think that magazines probably is a good number 3. For me, a little bit more off of the gun subject. Number 3 for me of things that I want to watch for going into the coming climate is probably going to be some sort of dry food storage. Not because I feel like I need to have a year's worth of food on hand, but because I know that it's not going to be available here not too long because people are going to jump on it just like magazines and ammo and firearms. I kind of have an inside take on that because the store in the front of our building is a food storage store, and we've been talking about it quite a bit that he's got a good stock now, but he knows if the election goes the wrong way, that he won't be able to get Fountain House food anymore. Like they just will run out. And that's something, even with the pandemic, like we want to have some sort of food on hand, toilet paper on hand. So I think that another stay-at-home order with a Biden presidency is definitely in the future if the COVID pandemic does not go away in the next couple months.
Yeah. So. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to have on hand. So I can't remember. Did I tell you about Aussie Chris Evans down in Queensland? So for the last several months where he couldn't leave his house at all, right? They weren't allowed to leave their house. Well, he told me yesterday that, or maybe it was this morning, that those restrictions just got lifted. So just think about it, though. He was limited to, I think it was 5 kilometers from his house. They couldn't go any farther than 5 kilometers.
Which is crazy.
It's just absolutely nuts. Think about, like, what if the nearest grocery store is 6 kilometers away? I mean, I'm sure they could have got some kind of paperwork or whatever to let them get through, but if you can't get food, like if for some reason you can't get out, you're going to starve. I don't think food storage is out of the realms of something that you need. And usually we see when stuff gets crazy, it is harder to get a hold of.
Yeah. And for me, it's less of the apocalypse is coming and there's going to be a civil war, unrest, any of that. It's more with the lockdowns and the fact that the Democrats have said that they want to shut things down and get this back under what they call control. And that's really what I see happening. And I think that it's easier to think about that now. And will you have some money, like get a couple days worth of freeze-dried food. Like, don't go out and get 3 months worth of food, a year's worth of food. Like, that's not something you just go out and buy right all at once. But I mean, get some of those, what they're like called, like Patriot packs or whatever. They send you a bag so enough freeze dried food for one person for a week. If there's 5 people in your family, you just have one of those for each person in your family. That's all.
They last for quite a while.
Yeah, the ones we have are 25 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
That's good for any kind of preparation,
They say to cycle through them, but I mean, I've only had mine for a few months, but I have 3 of those for me and 3 for my son, and they're just in the pantry.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised, too, how long those things can last. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those YouTube videos about guys, opening up like super old MREs or rations or whatever and actually being able to eat them. So it's surprising how long that those freeze-dried and prepared food can last.
Well, Mark, being able to eat an MRE is questionable even when they're brand new.
Well, just
I don't mind MREs depending on which ones they are. They're not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't want to eat them every day.
Any kind of prepared food, though.
Yeah. I'll give a hint to anyone who's looking at freeze-dried food. Any pasta and corn. Corn is the absolute best one. I mean, corn is corn, but as far as flavor goes, it tastes just like fresh corn when you make it.
Really?
Yeah, it's my favorite, and I actually have one of the number 10 cans of freeze-dried corn in my shop, and I eat it like snacks because it's already open.
Well, it is.
Nice.
I mean, it's delicious and it is filling. So,
yeah. So there you go. And apparently, it doesn't digest all the way, so you can be filled up and just corn.
Carry on.
It's the only food I know. It's the only food that I know of that you can chew up, digest it, and it comes out looking like it went in.
Well, that's an interesting take.
That is true, though. That is true. So,
all right. So
next on my list was spare parts, because I think a lot of people think, that guns and all that last forever, but really, I mean, do springs wear out? Different parts on ARs wear out. So you want to maybe have those spare parts, even if under normal circumstances, it might be wise.
Yeah, absolutely. You can buy those. I can't remember what it's called, the emergency parts kits or whatever that have firing pins and trigger springs and that kind of stuff that wears out the most. The rings on your bolt face, as far as your AR, those are designed to wear out. And it might be hard to find stuff like that at some point.
Yeah, and you don't want to find out that your firearm's not working when you really need it,
Yeah, that's bad. That's a bad day.
That's definitely a bad day. So, I just had, spare parts for your, like you said, the basic spare parts for your pistol, your AR, those kind of things. Definitely important to have.
I would definitely put that on my list. I overlooked that.
Well,
see, but it's easy too.
What about even sights for your guns, like handguns? Like I've broken sights off my handguns before. I mean, is that something that you think maybe just keep a spare set lying around?
I would say so. I mean, even under normal circumstances, because, let's say you do competition or something like that, let's kind of back in the good old days, as it were. And if you're competing, you're going to have, like we said, maybe at least 10 magazines, so you're not reloading them all the time. You're going to have spare springs, spare, rings, all that kind of stuff. And I would say, in addition to that, you're going to have spare sights too, because I've heard of, sights just flying off with different firearms.
Well, and then maybe to go along with that, maybe you should get a little bit of education on how to either drift sights in and out or how to take your gun apart and replace bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, that would be time well spent too, which you can do online, but it might be even better to maybe spend some money on some time with your local gunsmith or something, and they can show you how to do that in person.
Yeah, so that goes a little bit deeper into. I didn't think about spare parts because I don't ever think about the general public and the mass amounts of gun owners actually taking their guns apart. I think that as a whole, just like with our cars and changing the oil, most of us gun owners are lucky if we even clean the gun, let alone check to make sure that the springs are good and anything like that. So anybody who's not Steve or somebody who is into building their guns themselves, like, I don't think that we think about spare parts like that because we don't change the oil in our cars without being told by the little sticker in the corner.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, we just need to design stickers to put on the sides of guns, is what you're saying.
For your next scheduled service. That's a good idea.
Please service your gun in the next month. Thank you.
5,000 rounds. Please service it.
That's right.
You guys just gave me an idea for the next service at Hoftac. We're going to send out email notifications for gun cleaning and maintenance.
There you go. It could be a thing.
It's
million dollar idea.
Yeah.
So what else did you guys have on your list for maybe something that you might want to get now, or things that might be more difficult to get, or in the next little bit?
So I think everything is going to start getting difficult to get.
Just a little too far. Is training. Like, I'm kind of worried about training in the future if it gets too crazy and things start getting limited. Is our education going to get limited? If you can't have an AR, what about the AR training? Or what about handgun training, defensive training, concealed carry training? I don't know. I've been kind of worried about that, honestly, the last couple of months.
Yeah, that could be something that we might be missing out on. And if you don't know how to use your firearm properly, then it's probably no good to you as it is anyway.
Well, and I'm not saying that there's going to be a run on education, but some of that stuff could get limited. And
yeah, especially with the pandemic still going on. I mean,
and so I have to think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
So you might have to get a permit to take training in the future. That could be a thing. Pre-qualified to take tactical training because, I mean, let's be honest, the government might not want everybody to know how to manipulate and use handgun and AR, but that's a conspiracy theory side of me. But on the other side, like we always talk about training. Training is important. Obviously, Steve, from the classes that you're teaching and that you're taking, you can almost not get into training right now because it's so busy. So
well, and not only busy. I mean, that's one thing that I've been trying to really get going is some just basic handgun classes over here. But the Rona has just killed the in-person training, and some of the stuff that we teach in defense has to be done in person.
Yeah.
And while things are open and going, if you're wanting to take a knife class like Adam Boyce, his classes are selling out. Like he'll post a seminar and it's done in like 20 minutes. It's sold out. So if you're wanting to take whether it be an edged weapon class or a didactic handgun class, some kind of a handgun skills class, something. Because right now we can teach in person, those classes fill up quick. So you might be wanting to really keep track of that.
Yeah, and even if you have to sign up for it in advance, maybe a month or two down the road, you can still at least sign up for it, and then you'll be in, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So do you guys, who Ed's Manifesto is? You follow his page on Instagram?
I have not.
Never heard it.
I've not heard of him.
I do not.
Okay, so he's from Mexico. He does some. I think he actually is an anti-cartel drug, like an officer or something. I don't know. He does something against anti-cartels down there. Tops Knives brought him to Idaho Falls to teach a class, And I was like, dude, I want to take a class from this guy because he's got a pretty good reputation for an edged weapons class.
Yeah.
And that class sold out before Tops could even really post it on their website because of word of mouth.
So now that I look at it, I do know this person. A friend of mine trains with him a lot. Aaron over at Fieldworks on Instagram. He trains with him all the time.
Yeah, I wanted to take that class in Idaho Falls.
It's Ryan. Sorry, not
Ryan. Oh, man. But yeah, but before they even posted the class, just from word of mouth of people knowing that it was coming, he sold out his class. I didn't even have a chance.
That's just people want to know these things. They want to know how to defend themselves, you know?
They had a executive protect. He taught an executive protection type class in Portland a couple of months ago, and Ryan was telling me about it. And people traveled from all over the country to come and take this class. And it was basically, I think there was 30 people in the class, and Ryan said it was the like who's who of private executive protection. This guy, apparently this guy's got serious knowledge to share. And yeah, he does anti-cartel and some sort of like insurgency type stuff in Mexico where they go in and they like take people back that have been kidnapped. Well,
I've seen some of the videos he posts, and I would be willing to say that the stuff he deals with is probably worse than what our guys deal with in the Middle East.
Really?
But he's down there on a daily basis. Like, it's crazy. I mean, you think of cartels, they do some crazy stuff, right? And they're very bold. But here's this guy, he deals with it as a career.
And yeah, I mean, that guy's probably got a wealth of knowledge and experience, and if those like big deals are taking that class, then you know he's got to be good, you know?
Yeah, I was really bummed when I found out that the class had sold out.
Well, maybe we need to bring him to Boise and do a private class. I bet we could get enough people to do it.
It's expensive, I'll tell you that much.
Oh, I'm sure.
Well, you have tons of money. You just sell one AR.
That would pay for a class.
Yeah, there you go.
Just for me, though.
So one-person class.
Yeah, his edge weapon class, I think, was over $400.
Wow.
So, I mean, but, you know, you think about handgun classes and stuff. Some folks are paying way over that for a week-long handgun class.
True.
Well, and there's no ammo to purchase and no cost in that way. So I remind people of that when they're looking at prices of like medical training. Like you take a medical class and it's $300-$400, but you could take
worth it, though.
And you can take a pistol class and it's $150, but you're spending another $200 on the ammo. So it's very comparable, and it's knowledge that you need to have. And I'm a huge proponent, obviously, firearms training, medical training, and some sort of knife edged weapon training, even if it's defense against it, because as everyone knows, like knives scare the living crap out of me.
Yeah.
You can come at me with a gun, like I know what to do. When someone would come at me with a knife, all I knew was I got to get the hell out of here because I'm going to get cut.
It's scary, man.
And I started watching some of Ryan's videos on Instagram, and I was like, if someone came at me with a knife like him, I just want to die quickly.
Yeah.
Scary stuff,
it's crazy
man.
stuff.
Scary stuff. So, yeah, so I definitely training of any kind, or everything, you know, like you said, medical, edged, firearms training. You know, I think the most accessible to that would be, you know, medical training, even though you can't necessarily, you know, get as close as maybe it could be, to try out some stuff in person or whatever, like dressing wounds or tourniquets or whatever. But, you can at least get the knowledge of what to do and how to use some of that medical gear, you know?
Yeah.
Yep. And
absolutely.
Steve, do we have medical classes at the range?
We do. Sean Brenner teaches them there. And he's one of the RSOs, and he does some other stuff over there too, but he's a retired firefighter medic from, I can't remember, part of California. So I mean, he's seen some stuff, experienced some life. And for some reason, it seems like last time we talked to, I forgot his name, Gavin, over there, the academy director.
Yeah.
He said they were having a really hard time filling that class, which blows my mind.
Well, I think it's another example of people don't recognize the importance of the medical training going hand in hand with if you can shoot a gun, you should be able to take care of what you've shot.
Well, and not only that, if you come upon an accident or something on the freeway, I mean, you might be able to save somebody's life. It might be your child's life that you need to know how to work on. So,
you're much
medical
more
classes
likely.
are awesome.
You are much more likely to use medical training than probably any of the firearm stuff that we talk about. That's for sure. I mean, I use my medical training from being an EMT 4 or 5 times a year at least.
Wow.
And it's just as simple as like what Steve said. Maybe you pull up on an accident. Last summer, me and the kids were out walking, and my son comes running back, and he said, "This girl just wrecked her car, and she had a migraine. Her vision went blurry. She had left work, blacked out, ran into a tree, and was in the middle of the neighborhood. Her Prius smashed into a tree and laying in the middle of the street."
Jeez.
Nothing crazy happened. We got out of the car, called 911, but I had to enact some of my training to make sure that everything was okay. So that's just one example of the many times that you'll be able to use that type of training.
Yeah, that'll pay dividends long past any sort of political or firearms issues that we may be encountering.
Absolutely. So,
do you guys have anything else on your list? Do you think anything's going to be easier to get? What about one thing that I thought about was maybe hunting rifles and hunting calibers? Do you think those are going to be more difficult to get, easier to get? What do you think about that?
That is an interesting thing to think about. So the same time I was in there buying gun parts, I helped my buddy build a Grendel in an AR platform. And it's been a nightmare trying to find ammo for him.
Really?
Because I have, connections at the store and I know a couple people with ammo accessibility. It's been tough. But I walked into the store, and sure enough, they had a whole bunch of Grendel. And so I ended up buying him 8 boxes. And here's the thing, like 9mm 5.56 .308, they would only let me buy 1 box.
Wow.
But because it was a hunting cartridge and not a lot of people are buying it, there's no limit. Go ahead and buy whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's even like, so my dad was trying to look for 38 Special, and he was asking me, where can I get it? Is this, can I find this anywhere? I said, well, let me look online. Couldn't find it anywhere, but plenty of hunting hunting calibers for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
You think about it, it might get easier to find, but it might not. When I've learned this like from the 2013 buying pandemic, that you think things are safe, but they might not be once you get deeper into the panic. So hunting rounds might be easy to find now, but people will get to the point where if that's the only thing on the shelf, they're just going to buy it because it's the only thing on the shelf. Right. I remember I probably bought 25 shotguns during the 2013 craziness.
Wow.
Because people were trying to get rid of the guns that they had to get the guns that they thought they weren't going to be able to have. And then when it becomes the only thing on the shelf, say you go to buy ammo and the only thing on the shelf is double-aught buck or birdshot. Well, if you have a shotgun, you're going to just get that because whatever you can get to defend yourself, right? So I don't think anything's safe.
Yeah, that's
true.
Probably true.
But that's the stuff you can find right now, at least, ammo-wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it seems like even 22 rounds. I mean, they've gone up some. I guess I haven't needed to buy 22 for a while, but we're not seeing the same hike on 22 as we did, the last go around. So maybe that won't be so bad. I know some of the manufacturers increased a lot of the 22 production to try and stay ahead of it, and maybe that's why it hasn't been so bad. So that might be something to buy a couple rounds of.
I was in another gun store yesterday, and they had no 20. All they had was 17 HMR and 22 Magnum.
Wow.
That's wild. Because I was going to say, you really know it doesn't get bad until the 22 cannot be found. Because I remember it was 2013 where people were talking about that was like one of the first times you couldn't find 22 long rifle, and that was like the biggest deal thing. And I was brand new to guns then too, and I was like, wow, it seems like this is not a caliber that many people would have or stockpile, but evidently I was wrong.
Yeah, it's starting to get to that point, I think, and I think it only gets worse. So whatever's on your list and the top 5 things on your personal list, like, you should be keeping your eyes open for them. Check your emails. Keep an eye out. Like, if you're getting emails from places like Palmetto State or any of your things that you've signed up for, watch and see what deals they're having, what they have in stock, because as soon as it goes in stock, it's probably going to sell out, especially online. And so I would be paying attention to those deals. I know that I have Palmetto State and Rainier Arms both flagged in my email that if I have an email from them, it automatically sends me a notification.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Staying on top of that kind of stuff. So, well, I think that about rounds it up, unless you guys have anything else you want to add to things that, you want to think about getting before the end of the year.
No, I think it's pretty comprehensive what we talked about. So I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, just keep your eyes open, watch your emails, pay attention, and decide what is on the top of your list. Like, if I was a listener, I would sit down and write down a list and say, if these things come up, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah,
make a list and just go down it as you see fit. That's the smart idea. So,
and I think as you're in the stores buying too, just be patient with the retail staff, with the gun stores, because I mean, we're all dealing with the nightmare at the store right now. Like, whether it's buying ammo, buying guns for our customers, it's not like we're just out there trying to gouge people to make an extra $5. That's not what's going on. So be patient. If they have a limit on particular calibers of ammunition, then just buy what you can and go back the next day and buy what you can. Just be patient.
So I just want to say one thing to that point. It's not always price gouging as people feel. It's that we have to raise our prices on some things so that someone doesn't come in and just buy the store out of everything that they have because they have the money. So as much as some of us might feel like, well, store A is price gouging because they raised the price on 5.56. No, it's because we want to protect the availability for everyone. And so you might not be able to get as much, but we at least have some on the shelf so that you can get a box or two. Yeah. And just kind of think of it like that, as the supply and demand does dictate the price, but it's not always the store being greedy. A lot of times we have to raise our prices on products to keep them on the shelf longer.
Yeah, and it's not something that we want to do. It's because we hear from the customers when that happens, so it's not a pleasant experience all the time.
Yeah, no, not really.
So,
well, that's a good point.
That's just what I wanted to say on that. So,
I think that's a very good point. So, I appreciate you bringing that up.
Cool beans.
So cool. Well, if you have any other ideas, maybe anything that we missed, let us know. podcast@iishooting.com, or find us online on Facebook and Instagram at Range Minded Podcast.
Heck yeah, guys. Be safe. If you can, take somebody shooting.
If you can spare the ammo.
Yeah, stay safe. Look at those websites. Sign up for some training, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.